Welcome to the Folk School on Willow Creek, featuring University Distinguished Professor Tom Ezern, singing and telling stories from the salon on Willow Creek.
I need a bed for the night, boys, and my horses need hay. I've been riding that road line on the Hotdish highway. He was only just a cowboy with a heart so kind and true, and he won the heart of a maiden with eyes of heavenly blue. They learned to love each other, and they named their wedding day. When trouble came between them and the cowboy rode away, he joined a band of cowboys. To forget her he tried to learn, but away on that lonely prairie she waits for Jack's return. Your sweetheart still waits for you, Jack. Your sweetheart still waits for you, far away on a lonely prairie where the sky always blue. One night in a lonely cow camp, just after the close of day, someone said, "Sing a song, Jim, that will drive all care away." When Jim began his singing, Jack's thoughts just wandered back, where he thought of, told of a brave, true girl who was waiting for Jack's return. Jack cried, "Oh Madge, my darling," for the tears he could not see. "What would I give to know, love, that tonight you wait for me?" Your sweetheart still waits for you, Jack. Your sweetheart still waits for you, far away on a lonely prairie where the skies are always blue. He left the camp next morning, breathing his sweetheart's name. "I will go and beg forgiveness, for I know 'twas me to blame." When he reached that lonely prairie, he found there a newly made mound, and the people kindly told him they had laid his sweetheart down. She died of a broken heart, Jack. Dying, she breathed your name. She told us with her last breath to tell you when you came. Your sweetheart still waits for you, Jack. Your sweetheart still waits for you, far away on a lonely prairie where the skies are always blue. There's a heart that's broken for you, Jack. Your sweetheart waits for you. Well, starting out on a happy note there, but you know, to be it is kind of a happy note, because I can recall singing that song with old Bill Cook from Manhattan, Kansas, from Kansas State, and you know, he carried that song over. It's just it's a very sentimental song. It's not a typical cowboy song in many ways, but he would carry it just with presence, you see. So I get to wondering about this song. And maybe I think about this stuff too much, and that's what really constitutes an authentic ballad, and what is a folk song and questions like this, but thinking of this song, Cowboy Jack, or sometimes called Your Sweetheart Waits for You, there are things about it that don't quite ring like a cowboy ballad. Long, long ago as a phrase, and things like that. And, it's a song that might be written in first person, like The Trail to Mexico or something. It also just flips things. But all the cowboy ballads about a sweetheart left back home, it's always the cowboy finds that she's moved on, and he's the one that's left out. And then that's the plot scheme of it, and this one flips it. It feels to me like a female composition, in fact. So Cowboy Jack, how far back does it go? I started doing my usual thing, searching all the digitalized sources I commonly use. I realized this song is not that old. It really doesn't, well, it comes to popular notice in the 1930s. Looks like the first recording of Cowboy Jack is 1930. It begins to take off a little bit in popular esteem when the Carter family recorded it in 1935. And since then it's been recorded by various artists. In Canada by Stompin' Tom Connors, and only if you're Canadian will you know who Stompin' Tom Connors was. In this country by Stonewall Jackson, not the general, the country singer. Boy, I remember hearing him over the tractor radio now and then. So it has its life as a commercial song from the 1930s on. But when we were singing it, now I'm talking, a generation later, we thought it was a folk song. And I'm sure Bill thought it was a folk song right out of the oral tradition. It seems to me like what you might call a composed song, but you know that I don't really think there's a clear line of difference. I wondered, could I find this song in existence before it has a commercial recording in the 1930s? Well, and sure enough I can't, but not a whole lot. Now here's an interesting thing. The heyday of the balladry was, like 1880s through about the time of World War I. And not long after that, even by the time you get in the 1920s, you have newspaper columnists across the American West who start writing nostalgia columns, and often they dwell on folk songs. Well, sure enough, in 1923, several of them begin to pick up this song, Your Sweetheart Waits for You, Jack Was Only a Cowboy, Cowboy Jack, various titles. Yeah, and see, that's before the commercial composers and artists began to claim it. So it is out there. It's showing up in the nostalgia columns, which means it's older than that. Now, this doesn't mean it was a song really of folk composition. There might be an undiscovered sheet music version of this. It has a little bit of that sound. But I do know it's circulating in traditional fashion before its commercial life, and again after, post-World War II. So I'm going to call it a Great Plains folk song, except that the versions that I'm getting are coming out of the Great Basin and the Rocky Mountain states. They refer back to the prairies, you see, as the locale where this lonely grave is. I think it's close enough, Dr. Kelly, we can claim it.
Okay.
Cowboy Jack. That's our opener for tonight. I don't know, you've been doing anything with NDSU Press or just, bonbons?
Well, I just get paid to read books.
Yeah.
So that's all it is. Actually, this week we got to do something fun. A high school student asked if she could shadow me at work. So Eliza came on Monday and she went to our Intro to Publishing class, learned all about designing book covers and interiors. And then she came back on Thursday, and together we registered a bunch of our books for copyright with the Library of Congress and just gave her a little bit of taste of different things. Hopefully we'll see her again soon. She's a senior, so she'll be making her college choice soon.
But the gal's got some game, and you have her
sitting
down registering copyrights with the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
She no doubt feels like she was taken seriously.
And she was. And she was quite able, too. And then we also have an announcement, a book award. Ta-da!
Oh.
Dust Yourself Off, The
Oh, yeah.
Gravel Road to a Good Life by Tricia Velour and Tom Sandhide was chosen as the winner it's by the North Dakota Library Association. They pick books, they call them documents though. It's the Notable Document Award. We won first place for North Dakota, and that means that Dust Yourself Off is now going to the American Library Association for their consideration in document awards.
And it's also being the subject of a group read by the
Sons of Norway.
Right?
It is the whole Sons of Norway everywhere. It's their book club selection for March 2024.
Oh, we'll have to go to one of those discussions.
I know they're doing a Zoom one too.
There's your sleeper hit from the current lineup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. And our news here around Willow Creek, of course, is that we're back after a couple weeks in New Zealand. Ask us about it sometime. We'll probably unload on you. But we had took 2 weeks off. Actually met class from New Zealand. Yes, but we were up in the high country there in the area where Suzanne and I have been doing field research for 20 years. So
that's hard to believe.
Yes, which is about half of our life. So reestablishing connections there, and then down to Canterbury, Christchurch, for the annual meeting of the New Zealand Historical Association, where they're kind enough to let us, present papers as visiting Americans there.
Yeah. Well, Malvina and John noted that we posted some really pretty pictures.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's pretty hard to take a bad picture in New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand's kind of boring that way, Oh.
Just one beautiful scene after another.
Yeah, that's the problem. Moving on to another ballad. Okay, see, now I remember this being kind of a favorite ballad in the 1960s, 1970s. The Ballad of Billy the Kid. Of course, outlaw ballads always popular, and there's a whole reef of them. Most of them, you see, at this point, I can trace them right back. Where'd the Ballad of Sam Hall come from? Where the Ballad of Jesse James? I don't know who wrote it, but I'm pretty sure it came from Nebraska, and I can tell you what year, I believe. And can kind of pin down the origins of most of these outlaw ballads. Billy the Kid, though, and all of them. Then, if we were singing them a half century ago, we thought these come from the mists of antiquity. Nobody knows who wrote them and how they originated, and that's part of the shtick on these things.
And
well,
we could have been singing them a half century ago.
Yes. Well, we're systematically destroying all these kind of delusions here at the Willow Creek Folk School. But the Ballad of Billy the Kid, is a great favorite. Jim Hoy and I used to sing that around Emporia gatherings all the time. People loved to hear the Ballad of Billy the Kid, even though, he was not much liked by a whole lot of people in his time. He was a New Yorker, born in 1859, and then shot to death, of course, by Pat Garrett. Q&S, the significance of that line? Billy the Kid's last words. Who's there?
Who's there?
Yes. Yeah, as he walks into the darkened room, and of course, Pat Garrett is there. Q&S. Yeah. This after he had worked as a cowhand, actually, for a while, but maybe not very hard. He became a hired gun in the Lincoln County War there in New Mexico. So we're going to claim this as a Great Plains folk song, but wait a minute, is it really? How much of a folk song is it? This is another one I began to looking for here, and wait a minute here. Let me grab a note or two here. Yeah. So until it shows up as a commercial composition, recording industry, I simply can't find it in circulation. Here's a nice little piece by the eminent folklorist J. Frank Dobie, written in 1928. It's just about the time the song appears as a commercial product. And he's writing, he begins by saying of Billy the Kid, What was there about this killer of men, this pariah of society, this product of Bowery slum and Western lawlessness that has made him the object of such wide and undimming interest? Writing in 1928, he talks about how his Billy the Kid's allegedly severed trigger finger was exhibited in carnivals for 2 bits of view. The public fascination with him, evidently a sort of a dime novel, The Finger of Billy the Kid, that circulated. And the fascination, and Dobie writes that, well, the kid's trigger finger goes shooting on. After all, Billy the Kid was more than a common killer and thief, more than a common leech on society. He was an uncommon killer and an uncommon thief. He had something in him that has called to the imagination. He seems on the way to become the Robin Hood, not only of New Mexico, but of the Old West. Dobie says he has the art of daring. And Dobie's aware there's this song being sung, but he knows it as a commercial product. He quotes some of it here. Now, did that song come out of folk tradition or not? Well, the thing is, a fellow named Wilgus, in an article in 1971 in Western Folklore, he did what I have a fascination with doing. He tracked down the origins of the Ballad of Billy the Kid. And he finds the original. Yep, I think we can accept that he's got it nailed. The original, written by a fellow named the Reverend Andrew Jenkins in 1927, a year before Dobie was writing about and saying, oh, there's sounds and ballads and everything about Billy the Kid. Andrew Jenkins, and Wilgus cites as his source, who's he getting it from? The text was furnished by Mrs. Irene Sprain Futrell, now of Mableton, Georgia. Mrs. Futrell is the stepdaughter of the late Andrew Jenkins, writer of the Ballad, of Atlanta, the newsboy, preacher, pioneer, hillbilly, radio, and recording artist, called him, and composer of many songs now accepted as traditional by folklorists. So Wilgus is accepting the idea that these songs actually are composed as commercial propositions, and then they cross over and everybody forgets where they came from. It can be shown that the origin and dissemination of Billy the Kid roughly parallels the death of Floyd Collins, another composition by Jenkins. Billy the Kid was commissioned by Polk C. Brockman, an Atlanta, Georgia scout for recording companies and an independent entrepreneur, chose the Reverend Andrew Jenkins to execute a desire. So he commissioned Jenkins to write this book, sent him clippings about the life of Billy the Kid and a new biography of the Billy the Kid. And Jenkins, with help on the musical part from Irene Spain, wrote the Ballad. From there it goes into R.C. Victor and other recording companies. Vernon Dalhart, who seemed to record everything in those days, recorded it actually 3 times for multiple companies, including once under another name, and then it passes in. So when people like Marty Robbins and other, sort of post-World War II cowboy singers are singing this and they say it's from the traditional song, that's because they've forgotten where it came from. Nobody's accesses. As they began to record the Jenkins song, his name was never credited as author, but Wilgus has the goods. Okay, is this a folk song? Well, in a way. Can you then read a book about Jesse James and some newspaper clippings and write a ballad and call that a folk song? Well, if it goes into circulation, to a good extent you can. If the origins are lost and it's moving in oral tradition and informal transmission, I'm still mulling the status of Billy the Kid, whether we're going to admit it to the canon. Problem is, I kind of like the song, which means we're going to sing it here. This is what's about to happen is pretty unusual. I've never heard this sung before. I'm just going to sing the original 1927 Jenkins text. of the Ballad of Billy the Kid. Ready? I'll sing you a true song of Billy the Kid. I'll sing of the desperate deeds that he did way out in New Mexico long, long ago, when a man's only hope was an old 44. When Billy the Kid was a very young lad in old Silver City, he went to the bad way out in the west with a gun in his hand. Although but 12 years, he killed his first man. Fair Mexican maidens play guitars and sing a song about Billy, the boy bandit king. Howe'er his young manhood had reached its sad end, he did not join his pistol for 21 men. 'Twas on the same night poor Billy died. He said to his friends, I am not satisfied. There are 21 men I have put bullets through, and Sheriff Pat Garrett must make 22. And now the Kid-esque part, alright? Now this is how Billy the Kid met his fate. The bright moon was shining, and the hour was late. Shot down by Pat Garrett, who once was his friend. The young outlaw's life has now come to its end. Down in Pecos Valley, all covered in green, out in Hell's Half Acre, 3 graves can be seen, where Tommy and Charlie and Billy now lie. Their trail of blood ended, they all had to die. Now there's many a young man with face fine and fair. He starts out in life with a chance to be square. But just like poor Billy, he wanders astray, and he loses his life in the very same way. And then the recorder noted under that, Reverend Andrew Jenkins, January 20th, 1927. This song, it continues, this song was taken from True Life of Billy the Kid, that's the title of the book, as read and studied from the newspapers and other reading material. So there you have the origins of the Ballad of Billy the Kid. Huh. Do we have any friends with us tonight, Dr.
We
Kelly?
do. In fact, Molly Rosem and Jim Naylor are checking in, and Jim recognized your Stompin' Tom's story.
Something my what?
Your Stompin' Tom story.
Oh, Stompin' Tom Connors. He's going to be the only one out there, unless Bill Shepard or Bruce Shepard or somebody else's.
And then Kathy Niels, after a well-deserved break at the Lead Lodge, is back home again.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's actually kind of good to be here again, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Maybe sleep in the morning, too.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
What a concept, huh? I've said this episode is going to be a little bit about the season, and I don't know, for the first time, Dr. K, as I was, messing around with, it's really a Thanksgiving cactus, not the Christmas cactus, and got out materials for an Advent wreath, which reminds me, we're going to have to... Is it home insurance paid out? Oh yeah, the bank takes care of that. Yeah. And thinking about an Advent wreath, whatever your personal faith is, this time of year brings out a certain sober reflection, I think. I mean, underlying joy, but sort of sense of where we've come over the past year. Certainly thinking that way. And a fellow named Ole A. Olson, I kid you not, his name is Ole Olson, talked about him before. How this fellow who has written a whole memoir about growing up on a homestead in northwestern, what's now northwestern South Dakota, then Central Dakota Territory in the 1880s. Now he ended up here in the Fargo vicinity, and eventually in Fargo in mid-20th century, after his parents gave up on homesteading, but he then went out and successfully homesteaded in Montana himself. So he just hadn't had enough of it, I guess. And he thought about, and he got the mulling on that all his life. And at the time when he had moved back to this area, the Institute for Regional Studies was formed here at North Dakota State University, and he got to palling around evidently with Professor Lyons and giving him material. And Lyons was encouraging him to write in narrative fashion a memoir, but he'd also write poetry. And that sheaf of poems, I've sung a couple of those before, and I'm about to grace you with one more. It is a song about time in a couple of ways. It's a Thanksgiving poem. Well, we weren't here on Thanksgiving. I had some lovely lamb for Thanksgiving. I don't know about you in Canterbury, in Christchurch. But so we didn't celebrate Thanksgiving with you here with folk school. So we're doing that, but this song is also looking ahead to end of year. And I would say a certain frame of mind. And it's going to kind of connect up with the calendar ballad for the week, which is coming after this. And I'll tell you how they connect in a minute. But you'll notice a certain open-handed thankfulness in this poem by Ole A. Olson. Now, it also has a little inscription at the bottom of it. I'm looking at a copy of his typescript. And this is from collections of the Institute for Regional Studies in NDSU archives. It says, November 26, 1968, telecast on Party Line on my birthday. And the title of it is 410, so it's his 70th birthday. But what, telecast on Party Line?
Not 70th. 410?
Excuse me. 410. 90th birthday, yes. Of course, he's on the homestead in the 1880s out there. Sure. 410, his 90th birthday, telecast on the Party Line. Now, we've got to think now, at 90 years old, he really thinks a party line telephone is a wonder of technology. You've told me you never had a wall-mounted crank phone. Am I right?
I don't recall having one. But we had a party line, but not with a crank phone.
Well, I still remember the wall-mounted crank phone that connected us by party line to the world. And I remember our ring. This is in Barton County, Kansas. It was 3 longs and 2 shorts, which means you go, and if somebody rang that, then somebody at our house was supposed to pick up. Except nosy neighbors anywhere around on the party line would be picked up. But evidently, Mr. Olson had it set up that everybody in his party line, he must have let him know in advance that he was going to be reading this poem over the party line. I've never heard of such a thing before, but maybe other people have experience of having what amounts to commemorations or cultural activities using that wondrous instrument, the wall-mounted telephone, and the party line. The potential of it is great, particularly if you happen to set a wheat field on fire or something. Not that would happen. Yeah. Okay, here is 410. And you can imagine, and if you'd like, you can imagine you're holding the earpiece up to your phone here. Let's see, what key do I like for this? With Thanksgiving Day in the offing, I'm prompted to offer thanks for food and for shelter and clothing, and a penny or two in the banks. Now the good earth has richly blessed us with all of the things that we need. And for friends who are true and faithful, I am very thankful indeed. Now at the age of 80, I look longing back to the period when I could run a race and ski in the skate and cut fancy needles and figure 8. Though the astronauts may find some soil on the moon, I'll not be vacating this orb very soon. I'm living on borrowed time, they say. So this is my problem, who do I repay? Like that part about the moon landing? Drop it in there. Well, he's 90 years old, and he's witnessed Armstrong walking on the moon. Geez, the span of time, huh? Now, I pulled out last year's calendar ballad because I like it. It's a mixture of homage and composition and mashup. But it originated out of the book of Isaiah, chapter 61. And it took an old folk tune and set it in and began adding pieces. And I just got to liking this thing here. And it fits. And here's kind of how it fits. Tying back to Ole Olson and his thanks ballad. Dr. K, I'm going to sit down and write a bunch of checks this weekend, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Property taxes happen.
Yes.
There's only one way to evade taxes, and it's not a good alternative.
No.
So I'm going to start. I got checks to write. Some of them get to be kind of whopping. And it used to be I'd do this, and I start getting kind of cranky, and it starts to spoil the spirit of the season, writing these checks to one county after another. It's not massive land holdings, but a small parcel of ground can generate a pretty big property tax bill. Isn't that right, Melvina? Yeah. And then it struck me, isn't it a little bit of a privilege to do this? By the grace of God and the bold, venturesome spirit and hard work and persistence, judgment, and just blind luck at times, it turns out we're a people of property. And with that, we should be helping to keep schools maintained and make life livable on the Great Plain. And that, in fact, farming, landholding, and these things, it struck me in an uncomfortable fashion, the sort of rhetoric that goes about this. It's the decline of kind of the generous spirit of landholding that it seems to me used to prevail a bit more on the prairies. Okay, so here we go. And I better take this ballad, Beauty for Ashes, and stick it on my roll-top desk while I write the checks tomorrow, just to remind me.
Yeah.
It also helps usually to pour a couple fingers of bourbon. Great is thy prairie garden, Lord, the seas of grain and the rolling sward. Hunger and want should have no place. Let generous hands display thy grace. Dispel the darkness, kindle a light. Beauty for ashes on a winter night. Where we too little care have shown, where drought has seared and the dust has blown. Teach us, Lord, gently what we must know, lay on the sick thy healing hand, and make the fallen strong to stand. Show us the glory of my face, till beauty springs in every place. Dispel the darkness, kindle the light. Beauty for ashes on a winter night. We should have a grandkid to do this, shouldn't we?
We have some, they're just not here.
Well, you know, order one up. Have one mailed up here, huh? Here we are. Where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard but a scourging word. Thanksgiving Day in the offing, I am prompted to offer up thanks for food and for shelter and clothing, and a penny or two in the bank. Great is thy prairie garden, Lord, to see the grain and the rolling sward. Hunger and want should have no place. Let generous hands display thy grace. Dispel the darkness, kindle a light. Beauty for ashes on a winter's night. Where the deer, the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy, are not cloudy all the day. No, the skies are cloudy all day. And you know, besides that little glass of bourbon, in order to ease the tax-paying bourbon, you know what actually sweetens it up a little bit? Write one more check. In our case, it's to the Great Plains Food Bank. I encourage everyone in this season, if things are hard, it may be hard on everyone. Squeeze a little out for those in need. And join us next week for the Willow Creek Folk School. What do you say, Dr. K?
We now conclude today's edition of the Folk School on Willow Creek. We invite you to join us again next Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time for more songs and stories.